Very warm welcome to this video, which is quite an interesting topic, but controversial. Every time I do a presentation, I would only request people who are watching and listening to keep an open mind. Today's topic is Anunnaki, the creator gods. This particular topic has been invoked mainly because of the curiosity of many people who talk about religion and creation stories. So today we will take a different approach and look at what if there was a super intelligence which were the creators of the Homo Sapiens. So if you look at the Sumerian mythology or writings, the cuneiform writings, which has been translated quite meaningfully by Zecharia Sitchin and his team, then we'll find that there's quite a lot of similarities between what is written in some of the Christian texts and what is being told in the Enuma Elish and other Sumerian mythologies. Today we'll be comparing basically what really could be the reason for the creation of Homo Sapiens. Here we are talking about the sky people, Anunnaki. So, viewing Genesis as a mythological story with the deeper meanings rather than a literal historical account gives us a much broader view of possibilities wherein we can invoke some of these ancient mythologies and map them onto this particular story of the Genesis. This not only happens now, but in the first few centuries of the Christian era, many people started asking these questions, and they were known as the Gnostics. Gnosis in Greek means wisdom. And they actually thought the creation story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden was attributed to a personality called the demiurge rather than an absolute God, because it also is quite possible to think in that particular direction because they had some background regarding the Pentateuch, which is written by Moses, wherein the Genesis story appears. So in the Sumerian story of Enuma Elish, you come across a creator god called Enki, and he is supposed to be the son of Anu. And Anunnakis or Anu were the sky people, and Anu was their sky god, the father figure. And they were the inhabitants of a planet called Nibiru. They possessed very highly advanced technology, and Nibiru was making a very elliptical orbit around the sun. So if you look at some of the clay tablets where we have a depiction of this planetary system, you will find that Nibiru is figuring in that particular topology. What was the purpose of coming to Earth? The Anunnakis came to the Earth in quest of gold because they were running out of gold in their planet, and gold was very essential for their starships to reduce the radiation, solar radiation, when the planet was approaching or the solar ships were approaching the sun. So, having scouted, they found the Earth had gold. And they found that the Tigris-Euphrates River had an abundance of gold which could be panned from the river. And so they started landing on this particular Golden Crescent area, which was very fertile at that time. And you can see from the figure I have attached here, the ziggurats, the landing pads for the Anunnaki spacecraft. So this can also be pointed out that there were a lot of parallels in mythology about flying saucers, flying chariots, and you have in the Old Testament itself God appearing to Ezekiel in a chariot with wings and fire, breathing fire. And if you really look at the description of the chariot of Ezekiel, then you can see that it was very much used in the design of the lunar lander. Initially, they came, I think, about 400,000 years ago, and the Anunnakis were only a small in number, totally maybe about 600 who arrived on Earth. The Anunnakis had a very long life, and their first 8 kings who ruled the Sumerian area have almost about 30,000 years being the lifespan. And this again can be mapped to the Old Testament, where you have the longevity of the life being very high. For example, right up to the time of Noah from Seth. And also there's a reference to God desiring to limit the age of man because of his evil. And there you have a very clear indication that there was a modification of the human beings to make sure they cannot live beyond 120 years. Let us look at the Anunnakis and their creation of the Homo Sapiens. When they came to the earth to pan gold, they found that the gold was very limited. It was not so abundant in the Tigris-Euphrates River. But their scout ships found that the South African area had a lot of gold. So they sent about 300 people to this area to excavate gold. But they found that to be a very laborious task. So they had a brilliant idea. At that time, between 400,000 to 200,000 years before today, the Homo species which was occupying the earth were Homo heidelbergensis. And they thought this would be ideal to modify these people to become slaves. And if you look at the Enuma Elish, where clearly the god gives instruction to Enki to modify these people so that they could become slaves. So having gone to South Africa and finding that the process of extracting gold was very laborious, they had a brilliant idea of modifying the Homo species into a slave. And that's how Homo Sapiens were created. So the role of Enki was as a primary architect of humanity, but there was a clear instruction not to give them the reproductive capacity, which means they were like robots, they had to be engineered. But then Enki took pity on these people and then gave them the fruit of knowledge to become more productive. This again maps with the Genesis. Anyhow, we know from the Bible also, from the Old Testament, that God was angry and he wanted to destroy the people. Because as you see that these species which were produced by the Homo Sapiens were actually giants. So they were called Nephilims. And you can see that reference again in the Old Testament. So finally, it so happened that the flood was sent to destroy humanity. Again, this is another topic that we can cover separately. So that's how the Anunnakis modified a Homo species into Homo sapiens. And there is ample proof for this because today we find that from analysis, there are 2 chromosomes which are fused together in Homo sapiens as compared to the earlier species. Also, we have the FOXP2 gene, which has been actually makes a sudden appearance. This particular gene has got a role in speech and cognition. So here we have an allegorical interpretation emphasizing the Genesis story should be allegorical rather than literal. So in conclusion, we can say that there is a possibility, let us not take it as a fact, there's a possibility that the Homo sapiens was an engineered species created by the Anunnakis to become their slaves, but ultimately given the option of being totally a cognitive being by Enki, and then becomes the most populous and most prolific species on earth. Well, this is what I wanted to share with you today, and I hope that it gives you some light. You can always take a different view apart from something which is laid down in concrete and has had to be a belief system in a social, religious context. Thank you for watching and listening, and have a great life.